welcome back to Season 5 of Porcelain Peak, the strange and scary podcast.
Sound of the wind. That's the sound the wind makes.
Featuring Chop Talk Trivia, deep dive made discussions in to the odd and the unusual. Shut the fuck up!
I'm trying to do the intro!
I'm one of your hosts, Anthony, and I'm joined by these two chuckle fucks.
Counselor John.
Oh, yeah, we're in camp!
And Counselor Internet Daddy Anthony.
Counselor
Esquire.
Counselor Daddy.
Dear God.
Excuse me, Counselor Daddy.
Yes, and we are in Porcelain Peak CAMPOCALYPSE, and so what that means is for Chop Talk, we have some news about Nosferatu, which is really cool, and then playing trivia. I think you guys tied last week. I was out, or do we have a three-way?
No, we had a three-way. We had a menage a tie.
Yeah.
But for the camp main discussion, we are talking about Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind and When the Wind Blows. Two pretty depressing movies. Yeah, all around.
I kept having trouble with the Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind. It was a very I expected of the apes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Still my
Nausicaä
joke. Right?
of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, I was like, you would think after a whole Planet of the Apes month that we would be used to the ridiculous titles.
There should be a Valley of the Planet of the Apes somewhere in there. Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind of the Planet of the Apes.
There might be.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Eventually. Anyway, that's what we're doing. So we'll go ahead and get started and move into that Chop Talk.
Why don't you take an axe and chop it open?
Before we dive into that vampiric news, how you guys doing?
I'm doing excellent.
Great, John.
Hell yeah,
Why?
brother. Because I saw The Cure over the weekend.
Oh my God.
And it
How
was-
was that?
Fucking incredible.
Jealous.
How are you jealous? You were there. I don't understand how
I'm sitting over here, for real jealous.
you can actually be jealous. That's fair. But
Yeah.
you
Thanks
all
for giving me
have,
permission, John.
I'll have reason to be jealous next week when y'all go to Monsterpalooza without me.
You'll be with us there in spirit.
Yeah.
We actually got John shirts made.
Oh, did you? Are you carrying an entire Spirit Halloween for me to haunt?
We there in spirit.
Yeah,
That's too much.
I actually got us matching butt plugs with your face on them.
dude, that's pretty tight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are people gonna?
Or loose, depending.
That's going to be the challenge on the convention floor, but I think we can give John the Monsterpalooza exposure he deserves.
Hey,
Someone's getting exposed.
someone is gonna just have to charm the pants off of you.
Anyway.
Yeah, so definitely make sure you check out our Patreon bonus episodes because we're going to need that cash to pay for bail. After they arrest us at Monsterpalooza.
Yeah, The Cure was super dope.
Yeah,
It was a shit show surrounding the performance, but once we got in there, I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
Made it all worth it.
Yeah, and I'm doing real good, guys. No, I had a very chill holiday weekend. It was nice to have a 3-day weekend. I watched a bunch of Akira Kurosawa black and white samurai movies, and they were dope. And also, it was a very emotional weekend for me because 3 of my favorite shows ended. Yellow Jackets ended its season, and it was crazy.
I gotta catch up.
Barry
Mustard.
ended its complete run. And so that was sad.
What was
Crazy.
it satisfying? Endings are hard, and I feel like we've watched a lot of shows where the endings sucked.
So it went in a very weird direction overall in the last season, and
Okay.
I was satisfied with it. I don't know if I was necessarily happy with the way that it ended, but it made sense to me. I was like, "Okay, I get it. That's how it should have ended." I think.
I'm pretty sure Ted Lasso is ending now too.
Yeah.
So I haven't watched the finale.
Well, the thing that made it the hardest for me to really have to gauge my feelings on the Barry finale is that I watched it immediately after the Succession finale, which was like, it was.
So that's a show, Barry, I think you've been watching since it started, right?
Yes.
And Succession was you were like a latecomer.
Yeah, I mean, really, I've only been into the show for the past 2 months. I had just heard people for years saying like, "Oh, you should watch Succession. You should watch Succession," and I never thought it would be something I would be interested in. And then I just saw it. I was like, "Oh, well." Usually, my sign that it's time to watch something is that it's ended, and I know there's a complete thing there. But people were getting so hyped online about this last season that I was like, "I'm going to catch up because I want to have that feeling of week to week watching the last few episodes." So basically, since the second episode of this 4th season, I've been week to week watching it and getting to see everybody's reactions and the instant favorite lines on Twitter and stuff. And Yeah, I mean, I was very, very satisfied with the ending. I mean, the whole thing is a tragedy, so I wouldn't say that I was necessarily happy at the end, but it's one of those shows where like you have no fucking clue what's going to happen, like scene to scene, episode to episode, like up till the very last like 5 minutes of the whole show. You're like, I have no idea where this is going, and it's highly recommend it now that it's all out. If you haven't seen Succession, it's
Watch it before fucking Max takes it down.
Is that happening?
I doubt it, just because it's one of their biggest shows in a while. But who knows? Anything's possible now. But yeah, that was my weekend. It was very emotional. It was a roller coaster. But happy to be back here and talking about some wind-based movies.
Yeah, and some news before that.
Some news, yeah. So in our bonus episode, we talked about Werner Herzog's 1979 Nosferatu the Vampire. And the timing, as it usually is for us, was just weirdly perfect, because just today it was announced that Robert Eggers' Nosferatu has officially wrapped filming.
Oh, shit.
It's going into post, which means it's for real happening.
Hell yeah, brother.
Well,
Yeah, barring some...
until it's in the theater, I don't believe anything's happening.
That's true, yeah.
Or on its service, I guess. Is this going to theaters, probably?
Yeah, I think it's being distributed by... Is it Focus Features?
Can
I don't
this
know.
motherfucker get some kind of recognition? Because...
Oh, you mean like awards recognition?
Yeah, man. There's no reason that The Northman should not have been nominated for something. Like, that movie was fucking gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think especially
director, like, come on, those scene breakdowns that he does on Vanity Fair or whatever the fuck. I'm like, dude, you're a genius.
I listened to his commentary for The Northman, and it's just insane how much time and thought goes into every little detail of all of his movies, because he is, I think, first and foremost, he's just a history buff. He's just super into different periods in history and researching the shit out of them, and he's done that for all of his movies so far. And when I was listening to the Northman commentary, there are a couple different parts where he talks about Romanian folklore and about vampires, because there's like a scene where somebody dies in the Northman and they take him out of like a special side door in the cottage, and he's like, that was an old tradition. You had a special door that you would take the dead body out of, and it had to do with like vampires, and talks about how like they would chop their heads off and stake him into the grave and stuff. And so obviously, even when he was working on the Northman, he was already, because Nosferatu was originally announced as his second movie, and he in interviews was like, I think that's completely wrong. He was like, I just put out my first movie. I don't think I should be tackling a remake of one of the great, most classic movies ever.
Yeah, two really.
Yeah.
Especially having now all watched it. I mean, spoilers, go check out the episode if you are part of the creep cult, or wait a few months and watch it later.
But so obviously I think part of what we're going to be getting out of his Nosferatu is going to be a lot more of the like real history of Romania and stuff. And that's something interesting that I didn't mention in our bonus episode, is that Herzog could not film his Nosferatu in Transylvania like he wanted to, because the Transylvanian government was trying to rehabilitate the image of Vlad the Impaler, which is something that we talked about in our nonfiction November. Yeah. And about how they've kind of transformed him into a national hero over there, and they didn't want to continue to besmirch the Dracula name by having
this is even
Dracula
further
stuff.
Dracul from Vlad. I mean, this is like a creature. He's a creature, and he knows.
Yeah, so I was curious, because he did The Lighthouse in black and white. I was like, I wonder if he's going to do Nosferatu in black and white. Well, as if the gods are just shining down and answering my questions. His cinematographer, Jaron Blaschke, confirmed that Nosferatu was shot in color with a look reminiscent of 19th century romanticism. So
taking
taking cues from
Herzog,
yeah. So that's all the Nosferatu news, but I'm hyped, because I'm in that Nosferatu headspace right now.
Get this man an award.
I'm in my
He deserves an
Nosferatu
Oscar.
bag.
I'm gonna say it.
Yeah,
He does.
I completely agree. And let's see what else we have for news. So speaking of this is crazy, all the connections. So Robert Englund said that his performance as Freddy was heavily inspired by Klaus Kinski's performance as Dracula in Herzog's Nosferatu.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Like the creepy claws. Okay.
And speaking of Robert Englund, he has a documentary about his life that's coming out, and he's been doing a lot of interviews recently, and he has officially confirmed that he will not be returning as Freddy at any point, and he has really good reason for it. He said he has a real fucked up back, a real fucked up neck, his right wrist has arthritis. He was basically like, I'm just too old. I can't do it anymore.
Too old and too thick were his words. I think he meant thick around the middle, not
dumb.
Yeah, or in the juicy ass sense.
Oh, I see.
But yeah, he did say that he would love to see the franchise come back in some reinvented capacity, and that he would love to cameo in some way, but he really wants to see somebody take it and do something new and interesting with it. A couple of his ideas were, hey, instead of trying to remake the original, why doesn't somebody go and try to riff on Dream Warriors, since all the fans love Dream Warriors for a while, so much? Yeah. They could play into the superhero thing that's big right now. Or he was like, or somebody who could go and redo Freddy's Revenge, the second one, and actually really lean into the sexuality and the homosexuality of that character and how he's being tormented by Freddy, because they had to, obviously kind of make it sneaky subtext in heavy quotes in that version. And he was like, now if you could get, a creator who's in the LGBTQ community and have them actually make it a piece that is about that.
Yeah, I'd fucks with that heavy.
Yeah, so in this whole conversation, as a half joke that, of course, turned into an actual news article that's being reported, Final Destination's Devon Sawa has thrown his fedora into the ring, saying that he would like to play Freddy Krueger.
Is that true?
He just on Twitter was like, hey, if we're having the discussion about who should play Freddy Krueger, I'd be interested. He just, but he jokes all the time on Twitter and says random shit, and he's really funny. He's a really cool guy as far as I can tell, but it immediately turned into, everybody just report. Like, that's how you make a news article now, is you just take a tweet and it's the headline and that's the article. But yeah, that's pretty much the extent of that. And I'm like, I like him. I guess.
I felt like he was probably closest to, like, one of the closer to true villains in season 2 of Chucky, and had some awful moments in season 1 of Chucky.
I could see him playing a menacing version of Krueger, similar to what Jackie Earle Haley did, but I've never seen him do anything that's like,
where's the joke? The punchline.
Like, I don't want a joke. I want like a serious, nasty, like horrific Freddy, like an Evil Dead Freddy.
I think really the
vicious.
The best way to do it would be to turn Freddy into, like, take the concept of the, like, dream demon thing, and rather than having it so closely tied to Freddy Krueger, excuse me, either give the same powers to, like, maybe somebody else who was killed in a horrific way, who was an evil person, or have him change shapes, so he kind of like Pennywise takes on the form of different people's nightmares and stuff like that. Krueger was actually originally supposed to cameo in the It Chapter 1 as one of the, like, things that the kids see. But Andy Muschietti was like, no, that's a little bit too far in the, like, meta direction.
Yeah.
So he took it out, but they originally had plans to have him cameo. In the world of things nobody asked for, but we're getting them anyway. So we all know that there's a new Insidious coming out later this year, directed by Patrick Wilson. Well, we were wondering, when are they going to start milking this like the Conjuring series? Well, starting now. Kumail Nanjiani and Mandy Moore have been cast in an Insidious spinoff called Thread with a D, an Insidious Tale, with Jeremy Slater set to direct. So yeah, we're getting
what does any of this have to do with anything?
The Lamberts or whatever.
Who knows? I mean, that's pretty much that's all the news we have, is just that they're doing an Insidious spinoff. I assume it'll just
Kumail
Nanjiani
and Mandy. Oh, I'm there. I like them both, actually. So
I do too. I've just been wondering. I was like, it's really weird that they took the Conjuring franchise and made 100 billion spin-offs, but they never were like, with Insidious we can do. I mean, I guess kind of the sequels to Insidious after 2 kind of felt like spin-offs.
Yeah.
In themselves,
loosely related.
Yeah, because we haven't been continuing the Lambert story, but yeah, it's like they could spin off the Lipstick Demon and do other stuff with him. They could spin off the Lady in Black and do other stuff with that.
Or, I mean, people just going to the further.
Yeah. It could be any ghostly thing that they want to find in the further fight.
Or they could have done like previous, like, cases that that they worked and things like
Oh,
that.
that Elise.
Elise's team. Yeah.
Elise's team, yeah.
Windows and what's the other guy?
It's Specs and Tucker, I think,
Yeah,
are the
there you
characters'
go.
names.
Specs and Tucker.
Yeah. And then in my last couple tidbits of news, Black Mirror Season 6's trailer dropped. It is coming out on the 15th of, well, when you hear this month, June. So
June.
Sick. I'm excited. I still love that show.
Yeah, no, so do I. I've watched every episode that's come out. In these later seasons, I haven't been as big on, but there's still little gems in there. And I'm hoping that now that it's taken a longer break between seasons, that they come back with something that's genuinely interesting and a little bit of a shift on the format. But
It's supposed to be.
yeah, and that's what we've heard from Charlie Brooker and everything. But because that's going to be coming out soon, I expect we may be doing some sort of final cut or something around, or chatting about it in Chop Talk. But
Might could.
and then not really horror or sci-fi related, but something that we enjoy and have discussed. Lionsgate has confirmed that John Wick 5 is in early development, and they are also looking to expand the universe with a AAA video game. So
What does that mean?
So a AAA video game would mean like one of like the major studios like EA or Ubisoft or like the major publishers would be making commissioning to have a game made by one of their studios.
yeah,
5, huh?
I mean,
I thought the intent was that they were going to be doing a spin-off movie.
well, they still are, the ballerina movie.
No, yeah. I think that was right.
And they're still doing the TV show. I mean, it's like everything else here, where it's nothing ever ends. Nothing ever ends or dies. Yeah. Nothing ever has a closing chapter outside of Succession. go watch that show. But
have you watched it?
yeah, no, but that's what I'm like. I like that. I'm like, cool. This is a complete story from beginning to end. And if I want to rewatch it, I know I got this much to watch, and it's just don't touch it. It's perfect the way it is. Unless you're Better Call Saul, then you can expand on your Breaking Bads. But yeah, it's just like anything that it has franchise potential is gonna get.
It's too much.
You can't stop it. There's no.
Well, eventually it's got. I mean, I understand that like at this point, Keanu Reeves is still doing a shit ton of his own stunts, but with as much torture as that man has put his body through it in his 30
John Wicks as he can before he can't do it anymore.
Yeah, because eventually it's just gonna not work anymore.
It's barely working for me now. Like it needs to be done. It's gotten way too far from what it used to, and I don't want to get into it. Like the movies are still good, but like they need to end.
I had a great time with it, but I also, like I said, I agree that I think that the more that you like pound this concept into the sand, the less likely it is that you'll be able to go like this, shake all the sand off of it, and say, "Hey, you still want to watch this movie?"
Yeah.
Well, it's just not a franchise that was ever in a position like it. It started out with a very simple concept, and
shifted action movies.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
But they'll continue to make a shit ton of money because they're just really well done action movies, and that's enough to get lots of butts in theaters.
I mean,
it is
fair because
100%.
my butt will also be in that theater.
Oh yeah, if they release a 5, I'm there.
Yeah, but other than that, hasn't been a crazy big news week, so
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, wrap it up for Chop Talk.
Sweet. Then we'll get started with some trivia.
Movies trivia game, movie night trivia.
That Christmas house of wax, the fog, piranha. It's one of those, right? Right?
So
jumping straight into trivia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we're playing movies trivia game. This
movie
is multiple genres, not just horror and or sci-fi. We're gonna read a category and then go in a circle, read to each other. There's 4 categories. I'll read to John. John will read to Anthony, and Anthony will read back to me. And we're doing 2 rounds of that. All right. And we had a 3-way.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
And we also tied.
And we also John, what's that first category?
Comedy / animation.
All right, John, what movie features TPS reports, 15 pieces of flair, and a red swing line stapler?
Oh, that's my stapler. That would be Office Space.
That is correct. You're on the board.
Hell yeah, brother.
Oh, Stephen Root. That dude has had a crazy ass career because he's in Barry, and he is just like he's all like in the last season all fucking tatted up and like.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I quote that movie so often. The just a moment. I
know him more from Dodgeball.
Yeah.
L for Love.
Yeah.
I jump to conclusions, Matt.
Yeah.
you have conclusions that you can jump to.
They make that. You can actually buy that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Anyway.
Anthony, 48 Hours was one of the first buddy cop movies. Name one of the two lead actors, and I might actually just say you have to name both.
Why?
We'll give it to him for what the card says, but he should be able to name both.
Well, that's real assumptive of you, John. And you know what they say about...
I got all this ass over here, so I can assume
Yeah,
all
I
I
was
want.
like, you know what they say about... And then completely forgot what the saying was. When you assume... Makes an ass out of you and me.
Makes the ass out of you.
48 Hours.
48 Hours was one of the first buddy cop
48.
movies. Richard Pryor. And I've never seen 48 Hours, so I have no
I have
fucking
not
clue.
either.
I've heard of the movie, but I don't know anything about it. No, Wesley Snipes. No, 48 Hours.
Can I see?
It doesn't have a year or anything,
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
so I can get a range of actors in my head.
I mean, you're not, based off of what you're saying, you're not far off.
Here, just let me Google it real quick.
48 Hours is from 1982.
I knew one, but not the other.
One of these things is like the other because they're actors.
Jeff Bridges. I don't
Is that
know.
gonna be your final answer?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's Eddie Murphy
I fucking didn't know that.
and Nick Nolte.
Okay, I did have a suspicion about Eddie Murphy, but surprisingly, Eddie Murphy was one of those guys that I was like obsessed with as a kid, but I have not seen most of his like classic movies, like Coming to America or is Trading Places him with Dan Aykroyd? Is that Dan Aykroyd? Anyway,
You should see,
I know of the movies, I've just never seen
you
them.
should see both of those movies.
I'm gonna put them immediately on my list after this because that's usually how I decide on movies. Is like, what did I talk about on last week's show, having not seen? Tone, the line, "Time to rocket from the Delta to the DMZ" is from which film? Time to rocket from the Delta to the DMZ.
DMZ? What the fuck is a DMZ?
The Department of Motor Vehicles.
That's what it's like when I'm there because I'm falling asleep.
From the Delta to the D... I don't know.
It's
Zootopia.
Oh man, you were so close. It's Good Morning Vietnam.
What the fuck is it? DMZ?
The demilitarized zone.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
I took a wild guess, and I think that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
Also, a movie I haven't seen that I've heard is really good.
Oh.
That's Robin Williams, right?
You need to watch
Good
that.
Morning Vietnam.
Well, John's on the board. It's a grim day over at Portland. And we're moving into which category here, brother?
Action adventure.
Brian De Palma directed
Oh, didn't
Scarface.
mess his hand. What? Huh?
He directed Scarface.
Yes.
What director wrote it? I did not know this. This is good trivia.
What director wrote Scarface? Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
What director wrote it?
That's a director whose filmography I need to jump into at some point.
Righted it.
I feel like I don't know.
Written it.
I feel like he maybe, but I feel like there's mixed things. You know, like
I wouldn't
or
do
like
his
used to, but not so much now.
I wouldn't do his or her full
Yeah.
filmography, but yeah, pick out the best ones. So now you know it's somebody who's done at least more than one movie.
Of value.
Are you trying to say Yue Bowl?
No. No. Not like this. Paul W.S. Anderson.
Ooh, that is Oliver Stone.
Sticks and Stones.
Yeah. Sticks and Stones.
Yeah, I
eh?
heard like JFK is great.
Yeah.
Um,
Did he do Frost Nixon as
Frost
well?
Nixon, yeah. Or no, I think did he do Frost Nixon or just Nixon? I don't know. Either way, he does like the historical movies that are supposed to be like, you know,
But he also did like what was that Aaron Johnson movie?
oh, Savages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hella random. Anyway,
Anthony, which George Clooney film was shot in 200 locations over 5 continents?
My God. 200 locations?
200 locations. Across 5 continents.
Across 5 continents. Well, for the gag, I want to say Batman and Robin. I'm just trying to think of George Clooney movies where he travels.
Thinking about Batman and Robin makes me want to gag myself with a knife.
God.
I watched it.
You're watching too many Werner Herzog movies.
I watched it the other night, Batman and Robin. Mm-hmm. It's a great movie. Everybody chill.
Oh, yeah, he was the worst part.
I mean, okay, not to get to a tangent about Batman and Robin, but...
Proceeds to get no tangent about Batman and Robin.
I think it's a very cool-looking movie. Like, the way that it... Okay. I'm just going to take a wild guess and say... Ocean's 11.
It's Syriana.
Never even heard of it, so I'm just tanking it this game.
We're not that far off so far.
Tone in Pacific Rim Job. Humanity builds Jaegers to defend Earth from rampaging kaiju. What are Jaegers?
Robots?
What size robots?
Oh, giant robots?
That is exactly what it says. Giant robots.
Robots!
I saw a thing today that was like, in Ratatouille is it like a mech situation? Is this Remy like
it's
powering
more
a mech? Yeah.
Great. So John and I are on the board with a 1. We're moving into round 3. Anthony's got the 0.
Drama/musical is a category.
John Sam Mendes converted stories from his grandfather into what war movie?
1917?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Good job.
War never changes.
I need to watch
That's
that
a
movie again.
Fallout quote? Mm-hmm. It's at the beginning of every Fallout game. Anthony, what musical stars Catherine Zeta-Jones and Renee Zellweger?
Catherine Zeta-Jones, she
So fucking
dips
good.
beneath lasers. Chicago.
I don't know how any of that qualifies to be things about Chicago, but it's Chicago.
Yeah,
You're right.
Chicago. Also, one I haven't seen, the original or the remake. But I know you said you.
There's an original?
I thought that it was a remake. Maybe I'm thinking of a different movie. Maybe
Is that maybe
Cabaret
or Moulin Rouge or something?
Yeah.
Chicago's fucking rad.
It's a great film.
Highly recommend it.
I need
And
to.
all
I need to
that
start taking
jazz.
notes because now that we're actually breaking this out of horror and sci-fi, there's a lot of these movies I haven't seen.
Yeah.
Tone, who wrote the book? This is your kind of question, and the screenplay for Gone Girl.
Oh, fuck.
Gong Girl.
Is it
Racist.
Gillian Flynn?
Ooh, sorry, it's Gillian Flynn.
Oh. Is that really how you pronounce it?
I don't know. You got it. It's one of those Ghibli kind of situations. It was written by Gif Flynn.
I want to refer to so many more things as a Ghibli situation.
You should, but never explain it to anybody in any context.
It never exists in the actual context. It's a real Ghibli situation here.
Just like at a State of the Union address.
Reminds me of like
my friends, countrymen, we find ourselves in a classic Ghibli sort of situation. Giant bugs have erupted from the forests of North America.
Wow. All right. So we have 2.
he has one.
He's got 1.
Horror and sci-fi.
All right.
I think I win for getting all those laughs out of you guys. That's what I gotta say.
It's a real Ghibli situation.
In 2001: A Space Odyssey, what is the computer called?
HAL 9000.
It just says HAL. So yeah, you're better than this game.
Yeah.
Overachiever.
Yeah.
I don't like the cut of your gib.
or Jim.
You're gonna have to cut those technical difficulties.
I'm I'm gonna say I'm just glad this is on the regular episode and not the bonus, so at least like two
People
can
can see it. Oh,
So stupid.
Anthony, what Transformer movie tells the story of a yellow VW Beetle?
Which Transformers movie?
Yes.
All of them.
Oh, yeah. But I guess
Yes.
But I guess Bumblebee specifically.
Bumblebee is the correct answer.
Bumblebee. Tone, in The Day of the Triffids, what are Triffids?
What?
That's what the question's asking.
Man, how we be Triffids?
Aliens.
Unfortunately, they are carnivorous plants.
Oh, all right. Well, there you go.
It's one of the is a real Little Shop of Horrors situation.
Yeah. Okay. So John, you got what? 3?
Yeah.
Anthony's got 2.
And you also have
I
to.
have 2. Excuse me. All right, we're getting into card 2, second round here, and the question goes back to
Comedy animation.
John. What actor plays Uncle Buck from the movie Uncle Buck?
That would be Jonathan Candy.
Yes.
Candy's nuts fit in your mouth.
Want to be here anymore?
Anthony, in the film Scrooged, who plays the Scrooge-like character?
Bill Murray.
It is Bill Murray.
When you said I don't want to be here anymore, was that a I think you should leave reference?
No, that was a real life.
That was an existential crisis.
Have you seen that I think you should leave though, where he puts on all of the prosthetic like old man stuff in the mall, and then he's like, "It's so fucking hot, it's not working." It's like, it's
Season
not
3 just
working.
came out.
Yeah, I heard, and I've been trying to catch up on the first couple seasons because I kept seeing clips and going like, "This is funny." So
Some of it's hella funny. Like have you seen the one where it's like a Johnny Cash like band trying to audition?
Mm-mm.
I'll have to show it to you. It's so fucking.
Well, that's it's the same problem that I had with Nathan For You, which is where like I loved it when I saw just the good clips on YouTube, but then when I watch a full episode, I feel like there's not enough of it to keep my interest. That's actually like really good and funny.
Yeah.
Anywho,
Sometimes let the bit go too far.
yeah. In what comedy do Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn play married lawyers?
Come on, baby.
I don't.
It's quite the popular movie.
It's old.
I've never seen it, and I have maybe heard the title once or twice in my life. But
They play lawyers. Spencer Tracy and
Katharine Hepburn play married
Old
lawyers.
Cat Hepburn.
Old Cat Hep.
I don't know. Man. Dick Tracy.
Is it Kramer versus Kramer?
Oh.
It is not. It is
Oh.
Adam's Rib.
Oh, never heard of that.
Yeah, we got a lot of weird curveballs in this game.
I've also never seen Kramer versus Kramer. I was like, sounds like
I mean, I've heard it's yeah. Maybe I'll have to do like that with
a combo
Marriage Story. Like,
Oh,
do
God.
like a triple feature of just married people that hate each other.
I have no fucking idea what the score is at this point.
I think
you got
4
now, right?
3-2.
Okay.
We're there. We got it.
All right, perfect.
It's a real Ghibli Ghibli situation. Action adventure is the next category.
John, what adventurer has been portrayed by Richard Chamberlain, Sean Connery, and Patrick Swayze?
Huh?
What adventurer?
What adventurer?
Adventurer.
That's back when that used to be a profession.
So
That's so fucking cool.
Connery, Swayze.
And Richard Chamberlain.
Wilt Chamberlain. What do you do for a living? Oh, I'm an adventurer.
It's fucking sick though.
Is this some shit that I should know?
I don't. I'm gonna say no, but I don't know because I don't know this. So I'm just basing that off of that.
Shoot.
Yesterday I was at work and we were doing these presentations and someone wrote like general information and so now
General
I said,
information.
General information.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, ha! And I was just like, fucking John, dude. And then today it kept happening. People were saying like General whatever.
Yeah, general, whatever.
And in my head I was like, no. Like, damn it, dude, he broke me. So
I'm gonna say that it's Father Jones.
it's Alan Quartermain.
Alan Quartermain. Is that
Is
from
that the guy
like?
from League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
I don't think so, but Alan
Oh, that was Dr.
Quarter.
Jekyll.
Alan
Sorry,
Quartermain
Jekyll.
is a fictional character from General Hospital.
General Hospital.
Reporting for duty. Woo! That got me. All right.
Like you're in the ambulance. They're trying to like ask you where you want to be taken to. And every time you're just like general ambulance,
in the ambulance.
general hospital,
Give this man general anesthetic.
general anesthetic. You're like general anesthetic.
Put him to sleep. Somebody please.
Anthony, who directed the first Terminator movie?
Well, that's gonna be jolly old James Cameron.
Yeah, it indeed will be.
Did you say he's saying that he's still planning on making another one, but he just wants to wait to see what AI does to the world?
Is that what he said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's basically just like, I'm gonna wait to see how AI pans out, and then tie that into whatever Terminator story I tell.
Wow.
Yeah, Tone, your question is, what superhero has a cloak that fights on his behalf?
Why did you read that? Like Christopher Walken.
I want to be like you. Ooh.
Doctor Strange?
It
Love.
is indeed Doctor Strange. There have been some whisperings on the internet that Sam Raimi may be who Marvel is looking to do Secret Wars.
Oh.
Next big Avengers.
Can they let him just do what he wants to do instead of
No.
fucking with it?
No, they will not. Especially not on an Avengers movie.
Is it coming up? That?
Couple
Soon?
years. I think we still have a whole nother.
Is it coming up that, eh?
We have a whole nother phase to go before.
I'm over it. All right. What's the score, John?
4-4-3.
All right. And we're moving into...
A drama musical.
John, Brie Larson won an Oscar for her captivating performance in what 2015 film?
Is it not The Room, just Room? It's
Yeah.
cleaner.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Yeah, that's what she said when she got out. Spoilers.
Spoilers. Anthony, what was the first Shakespearean tale made into a film by the great, some would say, Kenneth Branagh?
I like Kenneth Branagh. Okay, I said it.
I've done said it.
Okay.
I stand by it.
He didn't make the worst Thor movie. Okay. Second
Okay.
worst.
Okay, babe.
Okay.
This is tough because I know he did Hamlet, but I don't know if that was the first one he did.
Omelet.
Amleth.
Hamlet. I'm just gonna say Hamlet because I don't want to waste any more time.
It's Henry V.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known which Henry.
Henry V.
4, 5th.
Fifth. Henry V.
I just took a wild guess. So, Tone, who plays Arnie Grape in What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
Oh.
I've been watching the Hunger Games movies because the Pretty Much It guys are doing commentaries for him, and I had never seen anything past the second one, past Catching Fire. But Elizabeth Banks' character, she always has like crazy ass costumes and makeup on and everything.
Effie something or other.
Effie Trinket, yeah. So for every new costume, they match her up to a Johnny Depp character from one of his movies.
So Johnny Depp?
Johnald Depp, if you will.
No, it's not Johnny Depp.
Oh, it's not? Okay. That's what I was going to guess either way. So.
Okay, no, it's Leonardo DiCaprio.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, didn't even mention this in Chop Talk, but you had said, this has nothing to do with anything, but you had mentioned De Niro having a kid, right?
Yeah. Oh, and
Pacino
is doing the
now
same.
Also, he's even older, and he is having... He's like 87 or some shit, and he is having a kid with his like 20-year-old girlfriend. But I mean, that kid's gonna get the bag, right? Like that kid's just last minute just snuck into those Pacino riches.
Yeah,
Pacino Cheetos.
Gross.
What's the score?
5.
I haven't even gotten to the fucking movies yet.
4-3.
You should call his son Lil Chino.
5-4-3.
All right.
And we are going into horror and science fiction.
In the sci-fi epic Annihilation, what is the... Well, I don't know how to pronounce the word. Anomalous? There we go. Zone called.
Oh.
Annihilation. No breathing.
They have a list of options here, but I don't think that you deserve them. Do you want them?
Yeah, John. You have you're a self-professed Alex Jarlin fan. You should know this.
If I tell you this list, it's instant.
Is it The Shimmer?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Good job.
Shema.
You didn't even need the list.
Yeah, it's
You're
just
listless.
yeah.
You
Anthony,
got 6?
I got 6.
Cool, good for you, dude.
I win. But also, what Star Trek veteran played Professor Charles Xavier in X-Men?
And also played a character in the movie we're going to be talking about in our main discussion.
Oh, shit.
That's Sir Pat Stew.
Yeah, the old Pat Stew.
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart.
Tone. Who plays replicant Roy Batty in Blade Runner?
I don't remember who that one is.
Like tears in rain.
Yeah, is it... what is his name? Rutger Hauer?
It is indeed
Rutger Hauer.
There you go.
Good job, sir.
So what, John won?
I did win.
When have you not won? When's the last time you not won?
Oh, you mean like not been either part of the tie or?
Oh, no. Yeah.
I think I would correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's been like 5 weeks that I've either been a part of
That's why I asked.
I've either been a part of the tie or a solo win. This might be the only solo win of that group, but
Good job.
Well, you know what?
you're like, you know what? I fucking quit the show in
No, all
August.
good things must come to an end. I'm going to be doing some Rocky-style trivia training over the next week. Just kidding. I'm going to Monsterpalooza. Fuck that.
That is training.
Yeah. I'll be absorbing all the information from all the booths.
Via osmosis.
And then when we see Robert Engel, like, hey, you gonna play Freddy again? Or
He's like, I was thinking about it, but it's a real Ghibli chip.
like, oh, okay,
I totally get it, bro.
we got it, Rob. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for trivia. We apologize, and we're gonna get started with our camp.
Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/Porcelain Peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more. Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/Porcelain Peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more.
Hey, you want to see something really scary?
All right, campers, welcome to this year's summer camp. We are doing CAMPOCALYPSE, and we're getting things kicked off with When the Wind Blows from 1986. This is an animated movie. Huh? Big sticks. Yeah, you keep trying to pull in the water boy, dude, and it's not going to happen. Anyway, this we thought would be a nice transition from anime into camp. So we got 2 animated movies for you this week, and this one's is directed by Jimmy T.
Murakami?
Yep. Written by Raymond Briggs and based off his book called, you guessed it, When the Wind Blows.
I really just want, like, for the remainder of the show, just for you to, like, just start to say a last name, just like the very first, like, syllable, and then have him just finish it for you.
Starring Peggy Ash.
Roft?
Yep. And John Mill.
Singer. Sandwich.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, guys.
Yeah, so the reason that
I see what you did there.
Thank you.
yeah, the reason that Tone wanted to watch this was because there's some Bowie involvement.
Yeah, very light Bowie involvement.
Yeah,
well,
so
it was also on a list of good, like, Into the World movies.
Yeah, from what I had read, he was originally supposed to do all the music for it, but he had some conflict with the record, his actual record he was working on at the time, and so he was only able to do the opening song. And then is it Roger Waters that does? Almost like John Waters. That would have been a real different.
Yeah, that's.
But yeah, and then Roger Waters, which I mean, it definitely sounds like Roger Waters in my opinion through this. But the music's great. The way this is animated, if you look at the original book, obviously the character illustrations and the way this looks is pretty much straight from the book. But what they do that's interesting is the characters are in 2D animation, but like their home and their environments are all like stop motion.
Yeah, it's like sets, right? It's fucking weird.
Yeah, so you have a lot of scenes where like they'll go to get tea and it'll be like, them as animated cartoons going and getting the stuff for tea, but then it'll cut to like a real table with a real little miniature tea set and them like pouring.
Yeah.
It's a really strange way. Like it makes the whole thing feel very
off.
I don't know. Off. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. It's just, it feels very
it's
off.
Like we mentioned it earlier, but like there's parts of it that feel like the Red Room from Twin Peaks, where it's very like, I don't know how to explain it. Like
uncanny.
Well, that, but
surreal.
It's that too, but it's like the motion is weird because in that obviously when they're going backward, it's all like chunky,
herky jerky, yeah,
herkly jerky,
something like that. So real quick, this movie is about a couple, and they are worried about a bomb going off in England. I'm pretty sure it's post World War II because they mention like, stuff has already happened with Hitler and all that.
Yeah, it's during the Cold War, I think, because they keep talking about Germans and then she keeps correcting him to Russians. Yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Cold War.
And so they prep for it, and then a bomb does go off, and so the remainder of the movie is them kind of living with the fallout of that, and it's a real downer.
It's fucking sad.
Yeah, and it's I mean, I think most people would know going into this, especially if you did it's there's a YouTube channel. A lot of great YouTube channels are archiving older movies, but specifically older movies with educational value. So like this and a really fucked up, very realistic nuclear post-apocalypse movie called Threads that I watched recently. That is, I wouldn't make you guys suffer through that, but it's harrowing, and that's also there if you want to check that out. But yeah, this is really all about kind of showing people the kind of everyday dangers and like you said, the literal and the fallout, the whatever,
figurative.
You know what I'm trying to say. It's showing how scary it can be for just normal people, especially in this time period where nobody was really sure what these bombs would do to the environment or to people. And you had mentioned this off mic when we were talking about it earlier, but we know in hindsight how dangerous radiation is and how long lasting the effects are and how devastating, atomic nuclear weapons are. But in this movie, all they have to go off of is what happened in Japan.
Yeah.
And so the husband talks about how the people who were wearing patterned clothing in Hiroshima, like where the pattern was darkest, they would get burns in that pattern. And his character is kind of the like eternal optimist, like everything's going to be fine because I've read all of the educational material. And that's also a sad thing, is that all of the educational like pamphlet stuff that they read in this is directly from real pamphlets that British citizens were given about what
and sometimes
to do.
Conflicting between different pamphlets.
Yeah, and a lot of it was just people's best guess. Like you have things that I had never heard of about, painting the windows white to help shield from the heat from the blast, and building a lean-to in your house out of doors that you crawl into because that's somehow supposed to protect you from radiation, and all of this stuff where I'm like, none of that seems to make any fucking sense. And so I think it makes it even scarier and sadder to watch, knowing what's going to happen to them because they're not prepared. And so when the bomb goes off and they're just like laying in the little lean-to and they're like, oh, seems like that should have been worse. Like it really feels like we were in the center of it. Like, oh, it's going to get so much worse for you guys.
Yeah.
And then it's just because the movie starts out kind of disarmingly charming. It's just these just cute old couple kind of like
it takes
taking
a turn
jabs
when
at
he's
each other.
like, get in there, bitch.
Yeah, I was really shocked at one point. I was like, bitch. I was like, okay.
Okay.
But yeah, it's this cute little old couple just kind of putzing around the house, living their life, and then it's just the husband for pretty much the entire movie, like in denial about what's going on and trying to be optimistic for the sake of his wife, and like, you know, everything's going to be okay. The emergency services are going to come. You know, people are going to come and help us and rescue us. They have this obviously misplaced faith in their government, and
he's a vet.
And he's a vet, so yeah, obviously he's very patriotic, and the wife kind of seems to, for most of the movie, know that it's not, that it's a lot worse than he's saying that it is.
Yeah.
But they're both kind of like doing their best to keep the other one from completely breaking down, and they do eventually just start to physically break down.
Yes, because like you mentioned, they don't know all the effects that the bomb does have. So when it eventually goes off and then rains, to them it's like, oh, fresh water. Our water's off. Let's get as much water as we can, not knowing that
It's
water
contaminated.
is contaminated. Yeah, and then that slowly deteriorates their insides.
Yeah, and then they start to, it's like, oh, you know, I had blood in my diarrhea this morning. Oh, my gums are bleeding, and yeah, and then it just
and they start like getting like lesions and all this other crazy shit. Like it's, I mean,
Hair loss.
it's really saddening to watch them like both kind of descend into madness and lose their like sense of reality and like just lose the will to live, because like they get to the point where at the very end where like
She's like, just put me in a sack.
well, or like but they're like she's like, oh, I'm gonna turn in early. They've just woken up. She's like, I'm gonna turn in and go to bed early. And then it like ends on him like starting to try to go through the Lord's Prayer, and then she's like, just be quiet. And that's it.
It's super fucking sad. Outside of like the story and the sadness, animation is very different than anything that we've watched so far. I think part of it is, we get the sets with the stop motion. So we have that. Then we have like the animation, like the 2D animation over that. But then even within the 2D animation, there are cutscenes, and we get this like chalk style. And then there's another one where we get this real sketch style. And I was like, this is really cool. And it kind of seems like they were just like, let's kind of have some fun. It's like this mixed media.
Well, you had
really enjoyed that.
You had mentioned when we were talking about Belle, and we were talking about like how much we preferred the Miyazaki style of like where you could almost see the pencil marks. In this, like there are entire sequences that are just in pencil. So it did feel like it was a real Ghibli situation.
You can feel the human connection.
Yeah, you can tell that a human made this and that they're trying to deliver a very important message. And that's like what I told you, because I was the first one of the three of us to watch it, and I was like, you guys are in for it. It's really depressing. But I don't think that means people shouldn't watch it, because I think, you know, it's a really important message. Not that anybody really, I mean, unless you're absolutely insane, I don't think anybody really has any like, oh yeah, nuclear bombs are so fucking cool and so awesome. Like everybody knows that if that were to happen, it would just be the end of the world. Like everybody just, I mean, that's kind of the whole been the state of the world for the past 50, 60 years. It's just like everybody knowing that at any moment the world could end. That's terrifying.
Yeah, basically from the moment that our country decided to actually use that against another country, at that point it kind of sealed our fate as that is a real possibility.
Oppenheimer was like, I am become death, the destroyer of worlds, because he basically, like, as soon as he saw what he had created, he was like, I done fucked up big time, and changed the course of human history. And that's why I think movies like this and Threads, they're difficult watches, but they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to remind people, you know, if our politicians and our government and these big-wig military people, if they make the wrong decisions,
it's more than just a push of a button.
Yeah,
for the rest of us.
It's old people in their farmhouses trying to live their lives who are going to suffer the most, and people who are just trying to live their lives. It's not country versus country. It's human beings. And you have to remember that. So, I mean, just like everything else that we've kind of slid into the this isn't really horror, this isn't really sci-fi, to me totally counts as a horror movie. I mean, this got under my skin more than a lot of the horror world, stuff I guess that I watch.
Apocalypse is pretty loose here. Yeah. But whatever.
But yeah.
Overall, I mean, as much as I can enjoy it, I thought it was well made.
Yeah.
And well acted. I thought the acting was good too.
Yeah. I would say that it's probably a movie I'll never watch again, but because it's so effective.
Yeah.
And I think that alone earns a recommendation from me.
Well, and just the fact that it's animated, so it immediately gives, the vibe of being a cartoon for children. And I think that's supposed to be a way of
pulling the wool over a little bit.
Pulling the wool over people's eyes so that they'll go, I'm going to check out this cute animated thing. And then they get sucker punched.
They get water shipped down or whatever.
Sucker punched directly to the nutsack.
Yeah. The radioactive Falcon Punch.
Yeah, I would say I recommend it as well.
Yeah, check it out. Like I said, it's free on YouTube,
yeah.
So go check it out. It's only like an hour and
20 minutes,
20
something
minutes,
like that.
so.
It's listed
25.
as the title of the movie, and then it says like a retrospective.
I think retrospective is the name of the channel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was wondering because I was like either that or they're titling it like that so that YouTube doesn't see it and take it down.
Who knows?
'Cause
And
I
if
know
YouTube
if
sees this, don't take it down because it's good for everybody.
Yeah.
It's
Including
educational.
Bowie.
Educational.
All right. Well, yep. Hey, you thought things couldn't get any more depressing? Well,
This is less depressing.
it is and it isn't because anyway, we're talking about Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind.
Yeah. So we've kind of been jumping around with the Ghibli stuff.
Yeah.
But
What's the real way? Ghibli?
Ghibli is
yeah.
the canonical
yeah,
way.
so while we're
means-
actually talking about the movie, I'll give it the respect of saying of keeping
It means
it
like
to
next
Ghibli,
level
but
or some shit.
It means hot wind.
Hot wind. Okay.
So wind
Yeah.
again.
This is technically pre-Ghibli, right?
Yeah, it's
But
now
eventually it's been like
absorbed.
because it's Miyazaki at the helm of this.
Yeah, I believe it was his second movie. He did the Castle of Cagliostro before this.
Oh, really?
Is that a real reaction that you just had?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an anime thing called the Castle.
It's a real
Cagliostro or something.
Ghibli thing, man.
I didn't know. Okay. I've heard that.
Yeah, so
But this one, it definitely feels older. Like the animation isn't as good as the other ones that we watched recently. But it is, like you said, it's
the color, I think,
Yeah.
for me was where
and like the animals or whatever, they're like the animation is very different than the people.
yeah. So originally, this was done as a manga. I didn't know that Miyazaki had ever done manga, but he couldn't. He
It's based on his manga.
Yeah, so he couldn't originally. Yeah, because then I was like, oh, I didn't know that Miyazaki had ever done an adaptation of somebody else's story.
Turns out he hadn't.
And it turns out he hadn't. He just had this idea, wasn't at the time able to make it into a movie. So he was like, okay, I'll do it as a manga. And so he wrote and drew the manga, which, just like every other manga that we've talked about here, expands way further than the movie does and has a lot more characters and goes on even further. But
It's a relatively short movie for the concepts that are in it.
yeah, basic concept of this movie is that there is it 7 Days of Fire. There was an event 7 Days of Fire, which is some sort of
These giant
apocalypse
beings came and destroyed everything.
Yeah, are they called warriors? Or yeah, so these giant beings came, they destroyed everything. Now there is a toxic forest.
And it's been 1,000 years since that happened.
Yeah, so we're very post-apocalypse.
And we're following Nausicaä, who is the princess of the Valley of the Wind.
Yeah, so similar to some of the other Ghibli stuff that we've watched, you have these different tribes or factions of people just trying to survive. A lot of this movie felt like a precursor to Mononoke. Like, really, the story beats, for the most part, felt like it was just like Mononoke, just not as refined. And because, yeah, you have the princess character, and her whole bit more in this is that she just has love for like any living creature, no matter what it is or what it's
human, animal, insect.
Yeah, and so there are these giant insects called ohms that are these giant mutated like trilobite things that are pretty horrifying. They have like spider eyes and all these
massive.
Yeah, and they come out of the forest, and there is a group of people from, I forget what the clan is called, the Tomaxen.
And then there's like one that's like Petra or something.
Yeah,
or Tetra.
So,
something.
yeah. There's one faction that wants to use. They've stolen a basically like an embryo of one of these warriors, and they want to resurrect it and hatch it and use it to Tolmekian. Yeah, they want to use it to destroy the ohms, and yeah, basically through the course of this, it's Nausicaä trying to kind of help the bugs and keep the battles from happening, and a lot of her flying around on her glider with her arms out in a Christ pose, and people going, a selfless act from a person. She's so full of love, I can't kill her. Pretty much.
But really, the message is that we have to learn to share this planet.
The balance.
With things that aren't human. Because obviously we believe that we are the dominant species on this planet, so it's like whatever we want to do is what should be done, and fuck everything else, really.
Yeah.
It's been the mentality for a long time, and I think that continues for a lot of people. And this is saying, like, no, we have to learn how to share this, and these things aren't bad. Like, that's what's keeping us alive. And there's a line that I thought was really poignant when he was like, yeah, you can burn something down and get rid of it, and that takes 2 seconds, but to build that back up and to restore it is going to take hundreds of years. Like, yeah. And I don't know. It's like we're doing that shit now and don't care.
Yeah.
And they've been trying to deliver this message at least since the fucking 80s.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying about like it being kind of having that spiritual link to Mononoke, which has that same message.
Industrialism and trying to find that balance, like you were saying, John.
Yeah, and about humans having this idea that for some reason we are not a part of nature. But, you know, and I'm not here to offend anyone's beliefs if you're religious or anything, but the science has been out for a long time. We are apes. We are descendants of different kinds of apes. We share DNA with apes that still exist very closely. We are animals.
Yeah.
And we just happen to be intelligent enough to have created tools to fully wreck every environment that we come into contact with, because we never have enough of anything, and everybody wants more, and greed is just a human thing. And that's the big thing in this movie, is that just similar to in Mononoke, there aren't really any villains, and the message that Miyazaki was trying to put across is that things like greed make people do evil things, even if that person isn't necessarily evil.
Yeah, the Tomikans are kind of villains to a degree, where they just come in like it's like we just want to talk, but then the first thing they did was kill the king of the valley, and I was like, well, it doesn't seem like you want to talk at all.
Yeah, I was confused, but I was like, what kind of message are you trying to send?
Right, but then they are kind of more or less the villains, because what do they want? They want to resurrect this warrior to then destroy the forest and to stop any of the other factions from getting the warrior. So they're kind of dicks. But then
they're a bit of dicks, eh?
The princess of that does seem to have a change of heart at the very, very end. At least she's not like, I want to kill princess. What is her name?
Nausicaa.
Nausicaa, yeah, duh.
Well, then that kind of reminded me of the character in Mononoke.
Yeah.
The character that loses the arm, the general character.
The one who's in charge of Terrytown?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so like we talked about with Mononoke, a lot of connections, I guess, to this end. The newest 2 Zelda games, at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a really powerful message, and I think something that you hit the nail on the head yesterday. You were talking about how these, I mean, a lot of anime, but specifically Ghibli movies are so masterful at taking just wacky sci-fi or wacky, like, distant past concepts and making you feel like it could actually exist, and like you believe the world that you're watching for the 2 hours that you're into the movie. Like
it's almost like instant, like within the first 10-15 minutes you're in it. And we've watched movies throughout the entire run of the show here and there where they try to build this world and it just falls flat. Like it just doesn't work, it doesn't make sense, it doesn't pull you in enough. And I don't know how they do it, but all of the movies that we've watched from them, I'm immediately like, yeah, I believe this. Like I feel like this is well established, and these people feel like they are really living in this moment, not like they have ties to us at all, even.
Yeah, I think the reason behind that, obviously, in this specific situation, Miyazaki made a manga that really dives into the world building and all these things at a deeper level than the film does. But I imagine that it's a similar story, even when he's just making a film, that there's probably a tome full of fucking like lore about these places that make them feel so real and so lived in, for something that only exists in someone's brain to their fingers and they drew it out. You know, I think that it shows so thoroughly.
Well,
and I know that there are a ton of people that give like Lucas a ton of credit for how like realized the universe of Star Wars is. And I don't even think they hold up half a candle to how real these worlds feel.
Well, and I would imagine, and this kind of just dawned on me when you were saying that if you are an artist or a writer or whoever working on one of these movies, for the amount of time and effort you have to put into creating a movie like this, you have to be fully invested in the world, and you have to be fully invested in the characters that you're animating and that you're creating, because you're hand drawing every frame and hand painting every frame. So I think that Miyazaki and the Studio Ghibli team are just very, very passionate about animation and the messages that they're trying to tell. Like, you know, Miyazaki has been very vocal in interviews about how he just hates the modern world. Like, he just hates pretty much everything about the way that people live and the way that life is now. And he's one of those guys that's just like, I'm going to go hang out in the forest and commune with nature and love animals and love people and draw. And he just, you know, he gets it. and you can see that passion and that heart really come through in everything that the studio puts out, but especially when it involves him, because Ghibli has gone on to do other things outside of Miyazaki directed projects, but his are obviously the most famous and the most highly regarded.
I wonder what I mean, I'm sure he's probably on record somewhere, but I'm wondering what he thinks of like the expansion of the studio outside of him, and then obviously into the real world with like there's like art displays, and like isn't there like a whole land now where it has these huge things that are dedicated to his works?
Well, yeah. So I know that with the Ghibli theme park, which I did not know existed until yesterday when I happened upon it on Google, their whole website is about like they got closely in contact with environmental like forestry people so that they could build the park to where it's like built into the forest with like the forest all around it. There's no big rides or big attractions. The whole thing is about like strolling through nature and just seeing, you know, walkthroughs and things that are designed after the Cat Bus and Totoro, stuff from Totoro, and there's a Mononoke village and like stuff that you can walk through, but it's all about just strolling around and enjoying nature and being chill with it. The merchandising stuff, all I know is that so Disney eventually became the main distributor / like in charge of doing dubs and things like that, because with this movie specifically, this got hacked to bits in the 90s and got turned into a movie called Wind Warriors or something like that. Oh,
really?
Yeah, they completely chopped up the plot, changed all the character names, and that's why when Mononoke came around and Weinstein tried to do that, that's when they sent the katana that said no cuts. Oh. And that's why if Miyazaki and Ghibli decide that they're going to partner with any other studio or any other collaborator, they have a very strict no cuts, no changes policy outside of adapting it directly into English and dubbing it.
Yeah.
So that's why for the longest time nobody could distribute them outside of Studio Ghibli, and then eventually Disney was able to distribute so they could get dubs and get these things seen in the United States. And now Netflix kind of broke the streaming barrier. They had them for a while, had a bunch of them for a while, and now some of them are on HBO and different places. Yeah, so they're. Because I remember back when I was first trying to get into watching Ghibli movies, they were fucking impossible to find.
And I think that's one of the reasons I never did, because I've always been interested.
Like you had to actually go hunt down the Blu-ray somewhere, like in a store, like an animal,
like some kind of animal. John.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that outside of being a little bit confused in the beginning because I could not tell if Nausicaä was wearing pants or if she was wearing a miniskirt and she was naked.
Like, those are legs.
Yeah, it's in the IMDb trivia. It's just an issue with the color in the movie because there are different versions where the color kind of is off.
Well, if you look at her face, it's a different color, so I just assumed they were pants.
Yeah. But the English dub, just like with all the other Ghiblis, I think is fantastic. That's how I watched it. I didn't even realize until 3/4 through the movie that it was Alison Lohman voicing Nausicaä. If you've seen Drag Me to Hell, then you should be an Alison Lohman fan.
Yeah.
I think that she gives probably the best voice performance that I've heard in maybe any of these movies so far. I just think like she obviously, it's funny. I'm just staring at the Drag Me to Hell sticker on your computer now.
Yeah, you're here.
She
that side.
She just knows how to emote, man, and like the emotion when she is like in any sort of conflict in this movie, and she's trying to stop, or like when she's trying to help the baby Ohm that's like bleeding out. It's so fucking heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's like, stop, you'll bleed to death.
Yeah, and then she's like, "Please, like, is there any way you can forgive us?" And like begging it. Like I was in tears. I was like, "This is hardcore." But she's great. Shia LaBeouf. I was like, it was driving me crazy. I could not figure out who. I was like, whose voice is that? And then I was like,
there's one thing he says when they're like under the sand, and I was like,
where he talks about being a cannibal.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's exactly it. Yeah.
And then you got
real life actor.
You got Patrick Stewart and Uma Thurman. So
mustaches were fantastic. Am I right?
Diabetes.
I want to ride those things. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Cashing in on a mustache ride.
In real life, there is a company that has replicated the glider from this movie, the glider that Nausicaä uses.
It was his glider.
And what does it do?
The wound came from his own glider. Sorry. It deep cut Spider-Man 3 reference. It flew like a short distance. They modeled it after the right dimensions and everything, and it has like a little bit of jet power like hers does. And I guess Studio Ghibli offered to help sponsor or be a part of them building it, and the company was actually like, no, because if we kill anyone testing it, we don't want it to reflect on Studio Ghibli. Like, we love your stuff.
Yeah,
like that's why we're doing this, but we don't want you affiliated because we don't want you to get sued if somebody gets killed while we're flying around on this thing. So they've built several different versions, and they have a couple that actually work for small distances. Nothing like the crazy stuff in this, but I mean, that definitely made me feel like, oh, Breath of the Wild, like all the glider stuff. I mean, it's a different kind of glider, but I was like, oh, that, and then kind of because Breath of the Wild is also a post-apocalyptic sort of
after 100 years after Calamity.
Yeah, so that felt very similar, and the different like tribes, like factions, tribes that are all kind of like eking out in existence in this world in their different ways.
Well, and the giant creatures that were then took advantage of the land and like destroyed everything.
Yeah, there's a thing called frocks in Tears of the Kingdom that are similar to ohms.
Well, and then you get a very similar sort of bittersweet but hopeful message in this, that the earth will repair itself, because Nausicaä at one point discovers that in the underground, the trees from the toxic jungle eventually petrify, and
they're purifying the air.
And they end up like purifying the air and the water, and so that's kind of some hope for the future. And then at the very end of the movie, you see that there's a little new sapling of a tree growing up in the underground.
It isn't the most like finalized or like happy ending. Like, we still don't know what's going to happen to everybody. Like, we don't know if they're going to try to still attack the toxic jungle. We don't know if these factions are still going to continue to war. They just stopped this impending doom in this moment.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, okay, so it's just over.
Well, yeah, and I think that's kind of also how, Mononoke did it, where it's like
well, they still have that big like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, what's gonna happen? We don't know.
Yeah, it's the whole. It's up to you guys, real world. It's up to you to take the message from this and carry that off into your regular life and be a better human being and treat the planet well and recycle and shit.
What do you think? Was this your first watch? And you really wanted to watch this, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I gave it 2 attempts to try to get this on some sort of list. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, I feel like of the Miyazakis that I've seen, this is the worst one. But that's like better than like 90% of the animated films.
Miyazaki movie is a great movie.
yeah. This is still probably somewhere in like a 4 or 4.5 for me, whereas Mononoke was like a perfection.
Yeah, no, that's exactly where I landed too.
The animation's just not quite there yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's how stark the difference is from going between this and seeing how vibrant and how colorful Mononoke is. Like had this had he maybe gone back and given this some love, then the animation could possibly be, on a similar plane. But it's just, there are a lot of scenes where it feels like it's all one color. And in Mononoke, it's just like everything is just beautiful.
Well, and even like pretty quickly after this with things like Totoro, like I think you see a huge improvement in the animation. And
Probably also a huge
colors.
improvement in the old Cheddar Bay Biscuit department.
Funding wise, or
Yeah.
Also, I was getting major Dune vibes throughout this entire
some Dune stuff. You mentioned it off mic, but Avatar. I mean, there's a line that says "way of the water" in this.
Yeah, it's like the way of the water in the wind or something like that. And I'm like,
Okay.
oh yeah, you definitely. Well, and then there's the way that the like
Of the water.
tendrils from the ohms come out and like go around.
Kind of reminds you of like
felt like
The braids.
the little hair.
Well,
wiener.
at the end of Way of Water, when she when Kira or whatever, Sigourney's new character, she's like in the underwater like tendrils stuff, and they're like healing. She's like using it for her psychic powers or whatever. So I was like, that feels directly similar. And then the Dune stuff obviously was just the desert, and then the ohms, the way that they are looked at and treated by humans felt the way that people kind of revere and fear the sandworms, almost like gods on Arrakis. So it felt very similar. I did read that most people suspect that Dune was a huge influence, but it doesn't look like Miyazaki has directly said that was an influence, but I think it's pretty obvious. You can tell that he was pulling from some different sci-fi worlds and things. But
I thought it was interesting too, and I'm sure this had to be intentional, but a lot of the way that the humans look, like the clothing or the masks and even the vehicles, all then resemble the insects. Like all of the planes are very like insect-like, which also reminded me of Dune, especially this last interpretation where they have those
the,
like dragonfly
things or whatever. Yeah.
And then even like is it Obaba?
Thanks, Obaba.
Thanks, Obaba. I was saying that in my head the entire fucking movie. Every time somebody said it, I was like, thanks, Obaba.
But she has these beads on her hood that are very much like the Ohm eyes. There's like red and blue, and it looks just like so. They, although may or may not hate these insects, they are then using a lot of them.
They bite and they shit bar for bar.
Yeah, pretty much. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Do you think maybe the idea there is that they are, even if they don't feel that they still are like
connected
to nature in some way, connected to the Ohm, despite everything they try to say and do about that?
I mean, that makes sense. Like,
could also be like a
want to try
camouflage.
to pull ourselves away from that world, but then we are still using that world. Like, I mean, airplanes still look like birds. You know what I mean?
Birds.
So it's like, yeah, you can try to pull yourself out of it, but you're still gonna fucking be part of it no matter what you do. So maybe that's part of it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
That is a cool observation. I hadn't picked up on that. Yeah, I mean, I know this is probably going to be the last anime thing we do.
Probably.
On the main stuff. I think we have one more anime coming up, maybe in bonus episodes. But makes me a little bit sad. I'm glad we were able to eke out an extra sneaky week of anime.
The old sneaky week, eh?
Especially with a Studio Ghibli Miyazaki project. It has made me want to go just basically rewatch all of their stuff, especially now that it is more easily accessible on like HBO and stuff. So
yeah, when this one finished, it was like, you might also like, and I was like, well, okay.
Yeah, I love Howls. I love Spirited Away. I love Totoro. I love Kiki.
All right, cool. Anything else you want to say about these two bad boys?
Watch them. Dang it.
Watch them, damn it.
Fair enough.
There's nothing better to do in the Campocalypse.
All right,
Yeah.
Tony Tone. What can these campers expect from us next week?
Guys, let me find it, okay? It's right here. Great. Here we go. Next week, we are still watching animated movies, but computer animated movies, and we're talking about WALL-E.
Wow.
Yep, nailed it. And 9. The number.
Yeah.
Not N-I-N-E, because that's a musical with Dan Day-Lewis.
Is that Elijah Wood? Does he voice?
I think
the
so,
main
yeah,
dude?
yeah. He's
Produced by Tim Burton, but not directed by him,
directed
right?
by him. And it has the Coheed song in the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
That's, it's all coming back to me.
Yeah. Do I have that?
9?
Yes, not.
9.
9 is German for no.
Yeah, I'm looking forward
Anyway.
to both Wall-E and 9 because I think I've only seen Wall-E one time.
Oh, it's so
and
good.
I remember loving it. And I only
top
saw
3 Pixar.
9 one time in the theater, and I remember being very confused and weirded out by it. So
maybe
Weird as fuck, dude.
maybe we'll figure it out together.
yeah, so I'm either on a rewatch going to hate it or love it. We'll see.
We'll see. All right, that's what we're doing next week. And if you haven't already, check out our bonus episode over at the Creep Cold on Patreon, where we talked about, remind me?
Nosferatu the vampire.
Yes, and next week we're talking about
I don't remember.
Pitch Black. No.
Nope.
What you pitched.
Yeah.
Panic Room.
Yeah, there we go.
Panic Room. We got there. So thanks for checking
wait.
this.
No, N-O. We're talking about... what did I pick?
Orgasmo?
Was it my pick, though? What did
No.
we get?
Oh, we are all over the place.
We are so fudged.
Oppenheimer.
It's been a long day.
I would definitely talk about Oppenheimer.
We're doing an
Okja.
Okja.
yeah. Which was on Netflix. I don't know if it is anymore, but I'm sure it's streaming somewhere.
I think it's a Netflix movie.
Oh yeah, I think it is.
So, probably.
Yeah. Check it out. That
Anyway,
also has
yes.
an environmental message. So
Yep. Okja and Wally and 9. And I've been Tone.
Counselor.
Counselor Tone.
I've been Counselor John.
And just Counselor Anthony.
no, I mean, hey. All I was gonna say is that we done found ourselves in one of these Ghibli situations, and I think it's gonna take an internet daddy to get us out of it.
See you next week. Thanks for watching.
Keep it campy.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
Go home.
Go home.
You can't go home yet. You got
You got 7 weeks of camp.
7 more weeks of camp.
I need to go.